Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Step by Step with your host, yours truly, Frederick Smith. I want to thank you for joining me again on this day. Today, I want to talk about something that affected me coming up as a young man, and that is growing up in a step family. Step families now are a large part of our society. The average family nowadays are made up of blended families, step families, if you will. With some statistics here I pulled up, they said 1 out of every 2 marriages ends in divorce. 1 out of every 2, and that's high. I mean, that's really high. But out of that 1 out of 2 marriages, out of that 75% of those who get divorced are remarried. 75% of those who get divorced remarried. Now remember, 1 out of every 2 marriages end in divorce, and 75% of those who get divorced get remarried. So that's that's a plus. I'm pro-marriage. I believe in being married. I believe in having a family. Nowadays, they kind of redefining it because a lot of people are becoming what they call common law marriage. That's what they're into now, common law marriage, where they just stay together for so long until the states look at them and accept them as a married couple. But I'm kind of a old tradition kind of guy. You know, I believe if you want to get married, I think it's important to make those vows to one another and seal the deal, especially including God in it, making those vows to God. That kind of put the seal on it. You know, you, your wife, and God. And the scripture said a threefold cord is not easily broken. So I think that's important. But here it states that the average marriage in America lasts for only 7 years. And looking at this statistic, I kind of thought about it. And, you know, I really believe these statistics because, you know, a lot of people, especially in the first marriage, nowadays, it seems like that's like a trial run. It seems like everybody gets divorced within 5 to 7 years. And usually get remarried, and because of usually people that's, you know, smart people, that get remarried, they usually don't make the same mistakes that they made in the first marriage, and they take what they learned from the first marriage and they apply it to the second marriage, and usually the second marriage lasts pretty good. From what I've seen so far, you know, a lot of people get remarried for the second time. A lot of them stay married. The marriage is a lot better because you take the time to really get to know the person before you get married. A lot of times, people get married too early. They're still trying to find themselves. So, and nowadays it's not like it used to be. You know, a lot of people compare their lives today with their parents or grandparents. You know, my grandparents got married when they was 13 and they was married for 50 years. Yeah, but you know, you got to remember back in those days, it wasn't much to do. It wasn't that much temptation. So, the average, you know, wife that didn't work stayed at home all day and cleaned and took care of everything. You didn't have a telephone a lot, you know, depending on how far back you go, you know, it wasn't a whole lot of telephone gossip. You know, you had to wait till the weekend to go visit somebody, you know, in order to get some information about anything. So you was able to stay together because it was less temptation and distractions in the marriage, you know, that would cause a divorce. Nowadays, you have social media, you have this internet dating, and so, you know, everybody has a car, and there's so many places to go all day, all night long. So it's so much more to get into, so much more that's enticing to a married couple or married lady or married man. So many different avenues that a person can take nowadays to slip out on their loved ones. I mean, I'm finding out about different apps that people can go on and they hook up and all these things. And in today's society, in the day of AIDS and so many different other diseases, you would think that people would be more cautious on who they make their bedfellows. But, it seems that, I guess they feel that they are invisible, I guess. Me, myself, no way, Jose. I mean, I got high blood pressure and don't want to deal with that. So I can only imagine dealing with other things. But I wanted to talk more about step families because I notice when I talk to people a lot of time, I do, people like to confide in me and talk to me about things. And usually when I'm talking to people about families, it's usually a step family situation. And I'm finding that a lot of people that get married, they just assume things about one another, but they never actually sit down and talk about it. Like disciplining the kids. When you're disciplining someone else's kid, it's not your kid. And if you all don't sit down and talk about these things before the marriage, and you just assuming, well, he likes my kids now, or we don't have that issue now. But it depends on the circumstances. A lot of times people get married, they're not living together, or they are living together. You don't feel that sense of responsibility quite yet because you don't have that attachment with the marriage seal, that stamp of approval, But after you get married, you kind of feel as though you're a parent, whether you're male or female. You feel like you've taken on more of that parent role, that responsibility. So, yeah, you want to be able to feel as though you're the parent. You don't want to get up and go to work every day, come home, see the child doing something and feel like, well, I can't say anything to him or her because I don't want to start a disagreement with the child's biological parent or my spouse. That's why it's important to discuss those things. Now, this is something else that I've noticed, that those who do discuss it before marriage, a lot of times they bring the kids into the situation too soon. Instead of the husband and the wife or the fiance, him and her sitting down together, discussing it first, and then adding the kids as they work out things. They bring the kids in and allow the kids to express themselves. But instead, a lot of times when they first sit down for the first time, they'll bring the kids in. Now, that's a mistake. And let me tell you why. Because you never know what that mate is going to say. And if you go into this meeting with the kids, they're assuming things, telling your kids, well, he and I are getting married and this is how we're going to do things. And he might say, well, no, I disagree with that. Now, you and him are going to be discussing things about the children in front of them, so that's not a good thing because now you're already setting yourself up for failure as far as the kids. And then, and then you put kids already in a predicament to whereas they might feel as though, even though it's not true, but they might feel as though they might have to choose. They have especially if the biological parent is in the picture, they might feel as though, well, if I treat mom new fiance nice, then maybe my dad might get upset or my dad might get a little jealous and feel as though I like him more so than I like my own dad. So kids somehow they feel in their hearts that they have to choose, and that's not the case. It's really not the case because they're blessed to have two parents. Now, I think it's very important. Now, I understand the statistics say that 30% of the divorced parents are still very angry with their ex. So with that 30%, I can understand being very cautious as far as bringing the other biological parent into the picture. You have to be careful with that, especially if there's a lot of tension, anger. I mean, that can really spew over. It depends on, if it was infidelity in the marriage and people are getting divorced, that could, and you bringing that person to now meet your new mate that you're planning on marrying, that can be a very sticky situation. So you have to be careful with that kind of thing. But if you have a stable relationship with your ex and you're planning on getting remarried, I think it's a good thing to maybe have a dinner and go out to dinner with everybody involved in the party and sit down and have a nice conversation, a mature conversation. Agree to disagree. It's okay for a person to have their own opinion. It's okay for them to disagree with you. That's how you can sit down and talk things out. Ain't no sense in yelling and screaming. You express how you feel about the situation. You allow them to express their feelings. And then you all try to find some mutual grounds. There's no reason to get upset or feel that, well, you're just doing this because of this. No, a person has the right to their feelings. They do. They have the right to feel the way they do, no matter how you might disagree with it. They have that right, and you need to respect that right. As one of the other parents, you need to respect that parent's feelings, no matter what's the motivation behind it. But that would be a good thing. We have to do things the right way. The reason why I'm saying this is because that would open up the situation to have more success as far as remaining marriage and bridging those gaps to where first you want to make sure that the children are safe in this situation. You want to make the children feel as good as possible. Because you have to think about it. When you first get a divorce, a lot of times the children suffer because you're going through your own emotional roller coaster. You're going through your own healing process. So it's kind of hard to cover the children completely the way they need to be covered because of our own emotional state. So it's good, really. I recommend counseling to people. I know in the African American community, a lot of times we kind of shun on counseling, but counseling is really good for helping children get over divorce, death in the family, those type things. Counseling really helps. Especially in divorce, because you're going through and the loss of a loved one, you're healing as well as that child is healing. And sometimes, you might miss certain things, because you're in your own feelings, and that you might miss certain keys that child might need some help. And it could be detrimental, and that child could start to act out, do poorly in school. And as parents, a lot of us don't know how to communicate really. We think yelling is communicating all the time. And there's a time and place for yelling, but, for the most part, we have to think about children as, intelligent young people. And we have to be able to sit down and talk to them as though they understand, not as if we have to yell it into them because they'll tune us out. But, step families can work. We have to set up the guidelines first. Ladies, you have to respect your husband. Fellas, I'm going to tell you, if you have lost respect in your household, your family is not going to work. It's just not. If you're not being respected, if your wife don't respect you and your children don't respect you, it's going to be a lot of animosity. It's going to be a lot of arguments, misunderstandings. People just going to, they're just going to take you the wrong way a lot of times because they really don't want to hear what you got to say because they don't respect you. So you have to set those guidelines up first. You have to gain the respect of your wife and the children. Anybody outside of the household, you really don't have to worry about a per se in that department because they're not in your household, but you have to maintain the respect in your own house. You have to. From there, you and your wife can build. Now, wives, I'm going to say this. You have to have an open mind, especially if you're in a situation where you are the parent with the kids in home. You have to have an open mind. You have to realize that you and your husband are in this together, that you all are one now. It's not, we're married, but these are my children. No, if these kids are in this man's house and he's raising them, they're his kids too. Now, you all need to sit down and agree upon the boundaries that you're going to set, but you can't wait until something happened, and then all of a sudden, just put your foot down, ladies. You have to get this set up in the beginning. But you all have to be in agreement that if the man is going to be the head of the household and he's going to be the disciplinary, you all can go together, but he is the disciplinary. So you can sit there beside him and hold his hand. If you disagree with something with him, you wait until after you have your little meeting with the kids, and if you disagree with something he said, you pull him in the room and say, baby, I disagree with it. You all discuss it. Once you all come to an agreement on it, I mean, it's good to do it beforehand. But if not, just don't get into a shouting match or a disagreement in front of the kids, because then they can see that they can play you on certain things. You know, when mom feel this kind of way and she's taking up for me, so yeah, you know, get it, mom. You know, no, you don't want to do that in front of the kids. What you want to do is you want to take care of them on the outside of the situation. No need in a whole lot of yelling and screaming, because the kids can pick up on that, all that tension. You know, just go in and discuss it, you know, because I've made those mistakes. I've made those mistakes before where, you know, your pride get a little hurt, and, you know, the first thing you want to do is yell when you go out of the room. Why did you do that to me? I'm the man. And it gets you nowhere. It gets you nowhere. It gets you nowhere. Trust me. But communication is the key in the step family. Communication is the key. Now, I grew up in a step family. My dad got remarried. My mother died when I was a young kid, and my dad got remarried, and I had 6 stepsisters and brothers, and I was the only child by my mother. I have 2 sisters, but you know, they wasn't in the picture when I was coming up. But now we have a great relationship. But when I was coming up, my dad and my 2 sisters weren't close, so it was just pretty much me. And again, I'm the only child by my mother, so you know, I gained 6 brothers and sisters, 4 brothers and 2 sisters. Now, as far as my family was concerned, me and my step siblings, we got along great. I mean, we really did. We got along awesome. I mean, still to this day, you know, I just know in my heart I can go to either one of them if I'm in need, or if I need a place to stay, if I'm hungry, or whatever the case may be. I believe in my heart that I could go to knock on any of them door, and I'll be taken care of. I don't have a doubt in my mind about that. And they know the same about me. If they call me and they need me, I'm there. And I'm grateful for that. I really am. I'm grateful. You know, my stepmom, my stepmom was never abusive to me. She never tried to be abusive to me or anything like that. She never tried to discipline me or anything. We just wasn't close. We really wasn't. And it did affect me. It really did. So step parents, you know, really try to form a relationship with the stepchildren or stepchild, because it's really important. Because when my father was getting remarried, I really looked at it as like, now, wow, I'm going to get a chance to see how it feels to have a mother. Now, she's not a bad person, don't get me wrong. It was just her personality. She was kind of an introvert, you know, so she didn't really talk a lot. My stepmom kind of stayed to herself. She didn't have a whole lot of friends. I think the only friend she had was her sister. And so, you know, she worked a lot, and when she came home, she kind of had her routine. So we never really, you know, socialized or sit around, laughed, and talked to anything. I kind of regret that going back. I wish we could go back and really, you know, spend more time getting to know one another and building that relationship. But, I mean, it was okay, but it could have been so much better. You know, we could have had so much of a better relationship with one another. But, you know, again, you know, that was her personality, and, you know, me being a child, I didn't really know what to do. So, you know, that's the way the family was. It was functional. And it wasn't, I won't say it was dysfunctional. It was just not your happy-go-lucky family with the picket fence. I mean, we were happy, but, you know, it wasn't this joy that was in the house. You know, we kind of existed around each other, but with no issues, you know, so to speak. But, you know, I turned out just fine, you know, and I did grow up with some abandonment issues. It wasn't her fault about it, but it's just, I think our relationship just kind of added a little fuel to the fire because, you know, you sort of get that rejection feel, you know, like, okay, well, you know, I wonder, does she like me or does she, you know, not like me? You know, I think she loved me, but, you know, but being a child, you know, and not communicating with that parent, it kind of leaves you in limbo, you know, so to speak. You have that in the back of your mind, wondering what was the situation. But listen, step families are becoming the American way. And we've got to learn how to work through it and save our marriages in our community. In our communities, our children need that. And when I say our communities, I'm just not talking about the home. The community as a whole needs solid foundations, solid families. The school, the churches, you know, all these things are affected by families. You know, if the family is not together, it's going to affect the congregation of the church. It's going to affect the response in the school and how the teachers respond to your kids. If the teacher has to spend most of their day dealing with the emotional issues of your child because of the home life instead of teaching them what they need to know academically, then, you know, that child is going to suffer. That teacher is going to be on the ropes because now that teacher is having to go in as a psychologist, you know. So it's just, it's all the way around, the whole structure is more stable if you have everything set up properly within the family as a structure as a whole. And I know there's a lot of independent women out there. I see a lot of them nowadays. They say they don't need a man, or, you know, some women just hard to get along with. Trust me, I know a few of them. They just have these attitudes out of this world. They get a good job. And that was a statistic that I saw. It said that 75% of the women, professional women, that was making over $100,000 a year, that was married to men with children, 75% of those women said if they had to do it over again, they would not marry a man with kids. And that blew my mind. You know, now the statistic didn't say whether the woman had kids or not, but it did say that they said that they would not, if they had to do it over again, they would not marry a man with children. And I was like, how ironic, you know, because if you meet a lady nowadays and she's over the age of 21, 9 times out of 10, she got at least one kid. I mean, sometimes they have a whole house full of them at 21, but, you know, 9 times out of 10, she got at least one kid. And it's so ironic that women that's professional and have them say, and that are financially stable, somehow if a man has baggage, has kids, they're not willing to accept that. But now if she was making $30,000 a year and this man had good money and she needed him, you know, she would be accepting and willing to, I guess what they say, settle for a man with children. That just caught me off guard. You know, it makes you think like, wow, what's the motivation behind a lot of these women getting married? You know, if they making good money, they wish they didn't have me and my children. But if they didn't have good money, then, you know, they would want me to help take care of their children. You know, that was just kind of weird. But I'm going to end it here. We've, I think, had a good discussion tonight. But listen, I want you to leave some remarks. I want you to leave some comments down at the bottom there. Those of you on YouTube and those of you who are on Twitter and Facebook. I want you to leave some comments. I also want you to like on Facebook and YouTube and on Twitter. And I also want you to subscribe on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, you can follow me at Step by Step Q1. That's at Step by Step Q1. I'm also on there as Frederick C. Smith 5. Frederick C. Smith at Frederick C. Smith 5 on Twitter. You can also email me if you have any questions or any statements or anything you want to talk to me privately about. It's stepbystepq, the letter Q, 1 at gmail.com. That's step by step, the letter Q, number 1 at gmail.com. Again, Step by Step is a program that I started just to have conversation, to talk about some of the tough subjects that most people want to talk about, but they're afraid to bring it up in the relationship because, you know, some people just don't know how to bring it up, thinking that it might cause issues. But remember, we love you. We don't judge you. If you have any comments, anything you want to talk about, please leave comments, email us, direct messengers us, and we'll be more than happy to contact you and talk with you. It'll be confidential, but we're asking you to please subscribe, like, give us a thumbs up. God bless you. We love you. Step by Step. This is Frederick Smith. See you next time.